Hello and welcome to your Newsmax Daily for Thursday, April 25th, 2024, the 116th day of the year, and take your child to work day. Always a great day. Or not so much. About 15 years ago or so, when my kids were still pretty young, I took them to work at a TV station. Wasn't the best. Great for them, but not so much for me and most everybody else. Perhaps you and your child or children are partaking in the event. Tag me in your tweet at radio_Marino. If you're not already following me, please do so. And let me know where in the country you listen to the podcast. I always love to know where people are, where they're listening, and what they're doing. Like, do you listen while you're driving, out for your walk? You listen in the morning, at night, on the treadmill? I did notice some Canadian listeners on the feed lately, so thank you very much for that. Today is the fourth day of the Jewish observance of Passover as the anti-Semitic protests on campuses continues to dominate the headlines. Last night, Massachusetts state troopers responded to a large protest on the campus of Emerson College.
The leader of the police, he came up and he told these students what was going to happen. They refused to comply with the police, and within 5-10 minutes, the police vans, they pulled up and then they started forcing their way into the encampment and basically taking these students away.
And good for them. Several arrests were made there, and topping the headlines. Today is the day that the U.S. Supreme Court is finally hearing arguments on presidential immunity related to former President Donald Trump's claim of immunity from prosecution. The outcome, either way, would potentially have huge ramifications, obviously, but it's unclear when the justices will have a ruling, which in itself could have ramifications, certainly on the timing of Trump's trial related to the January 6th riot at the U.S. Capitol. For now, the focus remains on the ongoing hush money trial in New York, where Donald Trump used his mandatory time in New York to his advantage again today, visiting construction workers early this morning on his way to the courthouse. Newsmax correspondent Addison Smith spoke with a union representative at the construction site.
Yeah, guys, the former president just left the construction site of J.P. Morgan. We've got some union workers, construction workers here, including Mr. Bobby. Bobby, your reaction to seeing the former president come by?
Very exciting that he's come by to say hello to construction workers. You know, in the past, we are basically Democrats, all of us, and after what's happened the last 4 years in this country, Democrats are basically pushing everybody to the other side. We're a very patriotic group, and we love our country, and we want the best for America. We are tired of immigration. We're tired of our tax dollars going to immigration. We're tired of the crime. We need to put a handle on things in this country and bring it back to how it should be.
And you say after what's happened over the last 4 years, what have you seen happen throughout Joe Biden's presidency that has pushed you guys towards the right?
Well, I don't think it's just so much Joe Biden himself, but it's basically all of Congress, the House, and the Senate. They're not taking care of the American citizens. It seems the American citizens are last, and the immigrants that come over the border illegally and criminals have more rights than the American citizens that are paying their taxes and going to work every day.
And if you could say one thing to Joe Biden right now, obviously he's trying to court union voters. He met with United Steelworkers in Pennsylvania a couple weeks ago. What would you say to him?
I would say start supporting the American citizens before anybody else.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. So there you have it, guys. A traditionally Democrat group who's saying they're fed up with Joe Biden, with Democrats, with the House, the Senate, really everybody pushing them further towards Donald Trump in November. Quite a powerful thing to hear. And again, at 4 or 5 in the morning, when you see all these construction workers and a lot of other Trump supporters coming out in Manhattan, MAGA hats everywhere. If you were watching a couple minutes ago, you saw that. Something that you normally wouldn't expect to see if you're outside of New York. But in talking to these people, they say, no, we're not surprised to see so many Trump supporters showing up in New York because we're fed up with the leadership that's currently in place. We're ready for a change. So that's the scene that we're hearing here in New York. Not something you would have thought would happen, guys.
So there you go. Donald Trump out on the streets of New York City early this morning, stopping to visit some construction workers getting ready to start their day. Nobody, no president ever has given so much access to the people. And like I said the other day, Trump makes the Secret Service earn their money. These guys have a job, right? Now he's back in court where, as you know, there are no cameras allowed in the courtroom. But Eric Bolling is getting us a look inside with Trump's press secretary, Karoline Leavitt, who has been sitting in the courtroom with the former president.
We wanted to talk to you about the ins and outs inside that courtroom. What are the jurors like? Is there any visual connection between Trump and the jurors, and how's the judge acting? Give us a sense of what's going on inside, because we can't be inside.
Sure. Well, unfortunately, due to the unconstitutional gag order that Judge Merchan has imposed on President Trump, we're actually not allowed to talk about the jurors. We can't talk about the witnesses in this case either, which is a shame because they're going on every network in the world slandering and lying about President Trump. However, the judge clearly has a disdain for the president and his defense team. That is very obvious by his body language and the way that he constantly shuts down the president's legal team when he gives a lot of leeway to the prosecution. He's much kinder to them than he is to us. It's very clear that the judge has a disdain, and you see that with the unconstitutional gag order that he has imposed on the president and our team, which should have never been brought down in the first place.
Yeah, we'll be able to read it in court documents later. The occurrences of objection, sustained objection, overruled on both sides will give you a pretty clear idea on which way the judge leans. Only we'll find out after the verdict. Karoline, we're going to roll a couple of sound bites showing Trump. If he can't be in Georgia or North Carolina or Pennsylvania like he should be and wants to be, he can go out and talk to people in places like Harlem and the Bronx, where people who shouldn't love Trump actually do love Trump. Roll me one of those sound bites, control room.
I love you, Trump! I love you, Trump! We love Trump! I love you, Trump! We love 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 Trump!
Yeah, and so, Karoline, it's amazing to see that in a wildly liberal city with a bunch of minorities right there who, typically vote Democrat. They love Trump. Karoline, your thought with that must energize him in your, again, standing near him during all of these.
It does. It energizes him. It energizes our entire team. And not only were those great people chanting, "We love Trump," they were also chanting "lying brag," because they know their district attorney is a liar, he is corrupt, and he's abusing their taxpayer dollars to go after President Trump, the former president who made New York safer and to put more money back in those people's pocketbooks. And that's why they love him. They want him in office for another 4 years to do it again. So while the Democrats' entire strategy is to confine President Trump to that disgusting courtroom in Manhattan, where we'll be back there bright and early tomorrow morning, President Trump will continue to hit the campaign trail here in New York and also across this country as much as possible. He has a big, beautiful plane we'll continue to use to fly across this country. And the Democrats also overplayed their hand in underestimating how much of an earned media machine President Trump truly is. Everywhere he goes, the cameras follow, he makes news, and he'll continue to speak truth.
Yep.
That's Trump 2024 Press Secretary Karoline Leavitt giving us a bit of a behind-the-scenes look. For more on the trial, this segment now from Greg Kelly Reports.
How do we know you're telling the truth?
Because I have no reason to lie.
Stormy Daniels, back in the news. She alleges that she met Donald Trump almost 20 years ago. Yet they're having a trial about this matter right now. I don't believe her for a lot of different reasons. I'll go through it in the days ahead. But number one is right here. In that interview, I noticed something very odd about her eyes. You see those pupils? She's indoors and they're wide as they're totally dilated. Something is up, totally up. Her lawyer, from Avenatti to a guy named Keith, so bad, so corrupt. But the people get it. They want everybody to be, oh my God, so scandalized. We're not, okay? We're not. The people get it.
On Palm Sunday, these conservative Christian women gathered in Dallas to watch Stormy Daniels' interview on 60 Minutes.
She was shopping her story for money. Just like all the other people that have tried to make money off the Trump name.
What was your first impression of Stormy Daniels?
I feel sorry for her. My heart hurts for her. This is a porn star. Why are we giving it any credibility?
Exactly.
And the fact that she now wants to come out with a story because she's afraid of her children? My goodness, would you tell the kiddos about your full-time job?
These women all voted for Donald Trump. And despite Stormy Daniels' claims, they still don't buy her story.
Why would she come out and give this interview if she wasn't telling the truth?
Money.
Money! Yeah! Everybody understands it except liberal prosecutors. They still think this trick is going to make people run from Trump. It's not. But they have him in court this week. It is an atrocity. It's a travesty, whatever you want to say. It's wrong. And I'm seeing just how wrong it is. Now, this is unique. The trial is underway. Usually, you got to wait for the transcripts to come out months later. You got to be a lawyer. It's a hassle. Well, they're actually posting the transcripts a day after, right? And if you got the patience, you might as well read through it like I've been reading through it. And I'm finding out some real doozies here. May I share? You know, last night I said there were 4 prosecutors. I was wrong. I looked it up. There are 8 prosecutors in that room prosecuting and persecuting Donald Trump. Again, Casey Anthony, remember that case in Florida? You know how many prosecutors were on that case? 2. 2. They got 8 lawyers going after Trump for this bookkeeping thing.
A bookkeeping mistake on a campaign funds ledger. Don't forget, that is what this case is all about. That's Greg Kelly, host of Greg Kelly Reports, 9 o'clock Eastern on Newsmax, 9 p.m., right after The Balance with Eric Bolling. And Casey Anthony, that he referenced, if you're not familiar, was charged with killing her 3-year-old daughter, Kaylee, after she had gone missing and there was a massive manhunt for the child. It was like the trial of the decade. They had 2 prosecutors. Again, 8 prosecutors in the Trump case. Okay, the other big news involving Trump, sort of, is that former White House Chief of Staff Mark Meadows and Rudy Giuliani have been indicted, along with a few other people, by an Arizona grand jury over their efforts to overturn the 2020 election. Their alleged efforts to overturn the election. Attorney General Chris Mays, a Democrat, announced the indictment Wednesday night, focusing on 11 individuals they allege to have acted as pro-Trump electors in the state of Arizona. Not all 11 names have been released. The first obvious question, why now? Donald Trump himself, not among those charged in Arizona, but is described as an unindicted co-conspirator. I am not an attorney, but I don't know that I've ever heard that term before. Perhaps we'll hear from Judge Napolitano, Alan Dershowitz, or other legal experts that will be explaining that today. Meanwhile, they're going crazy with that on some of the other networks, right? More indictments. That's the big deal. What they're certainly not talking about is this from President Biden yesterday.
Folks, imagine what we can do next. 4 more years. Pause.
Biden, reading the teleprompter, read the word pause, you know, where it tells him to pause. And the confused look on his face is even more telling than what he just said. Bianca De La Garza has more with Sebastian Gorka.
I don't know. At some point, the media's got to stop covering for him with these gaffes.
Well, look, very interesting things have been happening in the last 2 weeks, Bianca. You know, we've seen the likes of, leading Democrat strategists, former campaign managers for Obama say this guy is an embarrassment. We're worried, and they should be worried. I just can't stop harping on one thing, and I've played it on my daily radio show almost every day. I'll be playing it on my Newsmax show on Sunday. It's that organic clip from outside the bodega in Harlem, where the little black kid, all of 10 years old, begins this spontaneous chant, "We love you, Trump," and then the little girl behind him joins in. Then the grown-ups from Harlem join in the chant. I hope the Democrats are running scared, because if Harlem has President Trump's back, then they are in big, big trouble.
Yeah, it's true. It's so infectious, his spirit, and we saw it in Atlanta the week before as well. I just want to get your reaction. Within the hour, Biden also did another news conference, of course, took no questions, but he was addressing his signage of that $95 billion war aid measure, Ukraine, Israel, Taiwan. He said, quote, now we need to move fast, and we are. Never mentioned our open border right there, and obviously that's a major concern for millions of Americans today.
What about our hostages? We still have American hostages that are being held by Hamas in Gaza. And then who does he think he is? They've smuggled in $1 billion of aid for Gaza, which actually means Hamas, because the terrorist organization Hamas has been running Gaza for the last 14 years. And then during the speech, like wagging his finger like some old school mom out of, the Peanuts cartoon, he says, and Israel better make sure that aid gets to the people of Gaza. Hang on a second. Who are you to be lecturing a nation that is facing an existential threat? Who you, in a hot mic moment on the State of the Union, said, Bibi has to have a come to Jesus moment. This guy is out to lunch. He can't spell. He can't even pronounce the word Scranton when he's in Scranton. And then he's lecturing Bibi Netanyahu, the democratically elected head of state of Israel, as to what he should be doing with people who are trying to kill the Jews. It's an outrage, Bianca.
Yeah, and it's so on brand for this administration, as we know, when they released billions of dollars and they said, well, we're going to make sure that how Iran uses this. There's no way to do that. There's no way to not know how that money's going, that it's not going right to Hamas terrorists and not to the civilians in Gaza.
Former Trump advisor and host of the Gorka Reality Check Sundays on Newsmax, Dr. Sebastian Gorka. President Biden is in Syracuse, New York today, announcing a $6 billion investment in a Micron semiconductor plant. And everyone, including the Biden administration at this point, is waiting to see what could possibly happen next. What will the next gaffe be? Meanwhile, on Capitol Hill, the House is mourning the loss of New Jersey Congressman Donald Payne Jr. today, who died in the hospital nearly 3 weeks after suffering a heart attack that left him in a coma. The 6-term Democrat represented the 10th Congressional District of New Jersey. In 2012, Payne Jr. succeeded his late father, Donald Payne Sr. Be sure to keep up with all of the news all day and night long on Newsmax, available on most major cable systems. Also, make sure you're streaming the new Newsmax Plus. Go to newsmaxplus.com. You can also sign up for a free trial there. It includes all of your favorite shows and hosts. I'm Tony Marino. Thank you so much for listening to the Newsmax Daily. Continue to share it with your friends and family. Enjoy the rest of your Thursday and enjoy the NBA and NHL playoffs tonight. My Tampa Bay Lightning back at home against the Florida Panthers, and we desperately need to win this game. The New York Islanders home against Carolina. They desperately need to win that game. Knicks and 76ers is the big one in the NBA. And keep on fighting the good fight.
News breaks every minute, every day. You need the app, the Newsmax app. Find it free on your smartphone store. Then watch us anytime, anywhere.
Kelly over at Newsmax. The Newsmax people have been really, really terrific. Newsmax has been terrific.
President Trump is right. Millions are tired of Fox, and they're switching to Newsmax Plus. It's the fastest growing streaming service in America. You don't need woke Disney and Hulu anymore. Just get Newsmax Plus. Watch the best shows like Greg Kelly, Rob Schmidt, Greta Van Susteren, and Eric Bowling. And get incredible analysis from Dick Morris, Alan Dershowitz, Carrie Lake, Mike Huckabee, and more. It's free to start. So go to NewsmaxPlus.com now to sign up and watch Newsmax anytime, anywhere.